Hello, everyone. My name is Dhruv. We're joined by Farhan and Marcus, and this is the F1 Fix. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of the F1 Fix. You might have noticed that we've lost one member, but we're not going to explain that. We're just going to leave that up to mystery, and we're gonna get into some different topics this week. The most recent announcement is by Williams. They've dropped obviously their title sponsor, which we spoke previously about, and now they've just released a new livery, which actually looks pretty nice. You guys, I know that you guys have made your comments on that. You guys like it, don't you?
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm a
it's
big
much more
fan.
streamlined.
It's so nice. It just looks fresh, and I feel like it's gonna be a new chapter for Williams, just on the basis that they have a new look and it's really good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
Hopefully, it's a new
as
chapter. I mean,
I'm
I
sure
mean,
that-
yeah, there'll be a second faster due to the livery, and then a second faster due to the year development. So
oh yeah,
they're still probably a second
But
behind
the-
pace.
exactly. I was gonna say, I think they're like 3 seconds behind pace, so that's still not enough. But you know, I'm sure that they're only gonna be moving forwards. I don't know if how much they've made progress, but being first out on testing, I'm sure that means something. Um, I know Farhan, you had
Oh, were they the first ones out?
they were the first ones out. That's Claire made a very big
Yeah.
point about being the first people out on track for testing because they wanted to have a turnaround since the failure of the last season. But Farhan, you
they're
were
making progress.
you did want to mention something that Patrick had said about their leadership, and maybe we can quickly go over Williams before we move on to some of the other things that we
Yeah,
have to talk about.
Patrick had made a statement, and for those who don't know, he was the co-founder of Williams well back in the day when it first started out, and he said that Williams has some really talented people working for them, and there's no doubt that they don't. But it's with that technicality, there is no leadership backing to support that. And so he really addressed the problems at Williams as an issue with technical leadership rather than an issue with, the cars and the employees themselves, which I find interesting and not sure how they will address that issue, but it'll be interesting to see how Williams follows suit from that.
Yeah, I think we've kind of seen that, and I know we discussed a little bit of this in our pilot episode, but they made a couple of hiring decisions that didn't really make sense. For example, they hired Paddy Lowe, who was one of their older designers, and he's been around for a long time. But I feel like some of their personnel decisions just haven't been that good. There's other teams that always seem to hire the class of the field in terms of directors and technical people, but for some reason, Williams have always felt like they're a little bit behind, or their management and other teams just haven't been as good.
I think a lot of it is in the drivers as well that they and we talked about this in the pilot as well, but the drivers having a lack of experience doesn't really help with the development of the car, and we can see that some more experienced drivers bring that sense of leadership and better insight into what aspects of the car need developing and what aspects of the car are fine. So, yeah, I think that's just that for Williams, but hopefully with this new livery, with this fresh new face, we'll see an improvement in what's to come for Williams.
Yeah.
I'll just make a quick side note as well. Rocket, there have been multiple rumors around the movement of Rocket because they said they wanted to stay in motorsports. And a lot of rumors point to Mercedes acquiring Rocket as a sponsor, which I find really strange.
Yeah, so I think Rocket sponsors Nicholas Hamilton actually, and I think that's where that partnership is coming in with because Yeah. Otherwise, surely there's something to relate them because it doesn't really make sense where they're coming out of the blue from. But in relation to Mercedes, but I think Nicholas Hamilton might be their entry point.
I think it's just also Mercedes is at the top, and it just makes sense as a sponsor to want to appear in a livery with a championship-winning car.
Mm-hmm.
But I find it really strange because Mercedes is also really profitable, and they're always over budget and stuff like that. So the need for another sponsor doesn't seem to make too much sense to me.
Can I give a bit of a controversial opinion? I think that perhaps Williams losing Rocket and really pushing it to the point of essentially it has to fight to survive. It needs to get another major shareholder or something, sell off some part of the company. That might lead to a better restructuring of the organization, which Patrick Head mentioned is currently unorganized. So this could be, rather than keeping Williams in an unorganized state as it was, this just big change might shuffle things up and actually it might shuffle them up into the worst. That's one possibility, but it might shuffle them up into lead better.
Yeah, maybe it's the kick in the butt that Williams needs. And hopefully that's the case. I think we saw, with the new livery, we saw Sofina take over where Rocket was in the previous livery, which is interesting as well because obviously Sofina is owned by Michael Latifi, who is the father of Nicholas Latifi, and it's a multi-billion-dollar brand. So maybe if we see, this could be the start of the Latifi takeover of Williams. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Well, speaking
as I
of
said
Williams,
in a,
all right, go on.
As I said in a call with you guys, which was not recorded, I actually predict that there will be a Latifi family ownership coming over to take over Williams family. I don't know what name changes
Take
will
over
take
the
place,
Williams family.
I think that it's like empires back in the day.
Out
it's a Latifi empire attacking the Williams empire.
Total war.
I'm sure they'll do that. But speaking of Williams, all right, finish what you're saying.
I was just gonna say, do you think that if that were to happen, Claire Williams would still be at the top?
I think that if Latifi invests, then there's no way that Claire Williams sticks around because I think that Claire Williams might have some leadership in a specific area of Williams, which I know that she worked in Williams and she was good at maybe marketing, or I think there was like some specific part of Williams that she was good at managing. I'm sure she still is. I just don't think those skills are transferable to running a race team. And I think that if the Latifi family takes over, I'm sure they'll appoint somebody that has the experience leading a successful team.
Yeah, because there isn't, the Latifi brand would just be a new thing. It's not like it's a generational Williams brand which just passed down to Claire. Because in a pure business where everything is the most efficient, most likely Claire wouldn't be the most optimum choice, but you chose her because she has the Williams name. So I think that Latifi would see this and then switch her out for somewhere else. Maybe he'll keep her around in some other role, but I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Well, okay. Speaking of Williams, George Russell, as we know, did very well in his esports. It was kind of the replacement that we had for F1 while we didn't have races, and every single week he seemed to just pull the race out of the bag. Like, I remember watching the first couple ones, and I think he wasn't too good at the beginning, but then we saw how seriously he started taking it, and we saw that he put in work, and he actually understood how the game worked, and actually used that to his advantage. And by the end of the series, we found that his times for the races were, easily competing with the actual competitive esports players. So I think we've discussed this before, and I think it is one indication of how good George Russell is. And we also have there is a discussion to be made there whether those skills are transferable. Where I personally don't think they are, but I definitely think that the work ethic is.
Oh, for sure that work ethic is. Sorry to cut you off, but I was just gonna mention like George Russell himself has said that after going on the Williams simulator, he has seen like a lot of improvement after doing the esports. So he has seen improvements in actual racing, and remember, this is like they're expected to perform less in the simulator because they've been out of season 4 however long they have, a couple of months. So they're expected to perform worse and be rusty. But George Russell has actually shown improvements in the simulator, which is quite close to real life, actually. And that's why they have that simulators. And that's why they spend like millions of dollars on these simulators. So I have a feeling that maybe these skills will be transferable. But it will be hard to gauge because if Williams is still at the back of the grid, then the only gauge we will have is how often he beats out Latifi. And since we haven't had any on-track action from Latifi himself, we don't know how that dynamic will play out.
I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I think George is gonna wipe the floor with Latifi. George is GP4, not GP4. What is it? Formula 4 champion. GP3 champion, Formula 2 champion. He's the class of the field, and like he's the future of F1. There's no way that Latifi is gonna beat him.
Oh, for sure. I think I agree with that, and I feel so like because remember George beat out both Norris and Albon in the F2 championship. He was the F2 champion, so. Yeah, I feel it's kind of sad seeing him at the back of the grid. I feel like his talents are being wasted at Williams. And we saw like Albon moving to Red Bull. He's done so much. And even Norris at McLaren, I mean, there were a bit of unreliability issues that affected his actual like grid positions. But he performed well in the team.
Yeah.
And to think that like George Russell beat out both of them in F2, I wish he was in a better car, to be honest. Like, I wonder what.
Yeah. Okay. Earlier, I just saw it today, but on the F1 TV Access, they just released a documentary about George Russell, like about the next generation, and it actually. I mean, I've always supported him, but he's always been a bit of a smaller character in my mind just because he is at the back of the grid usually.
Yeah,
but this has made me really want him to just I honestly I want him to change teams just because I want to see him perform now. I don't want to wait like an extra 3 years for Williams to be back up there. I want to see him perform now.
See, I agree, but the thing is he's a Mercedes affiliated driver. And I don't actually see what seats could possibly open up for him. Because, like, traditionally, a Mercedes driver, you have the options of, there would be McLaren, obviously, as a Mercedes-supplied engine team. And then there would be Racing Point. Both of which I doubt seats will be open for. I mean, if anything, Racing Point is more likely because those other two drivers are too good. And Racing Point, you have the one person that owns the team and the other person that's been in the team and like been with the team for so long, essentially saved it when it was Force India
and he has Perez has so much sponsorship backing that it's just kind of unrealistic. I think rumors have been circulating, like not rumors but like people think that Russell will replace Bottas at Mercedes.
Yeah.
Do you guys
I
want to see that happen?
That's.
I don't know what
would
year,
say
but
that's
eventually.
most reliable because Bottas. I don't know how many new generations of him will need for him to perform well.
We'll get to Bottas
at
like
least
24.0.
But at least Bottas at Williams will be much more better as a developmental driver and building up the car rather
Okay.
than Russell, who would be out racing.
You
and
think
I agree.
Bottas would go back to Williams?
Okay, yeah, okay. So I think I have 2 points there. First of all, I doubt Bottas will go back to Williams after being in a championship-winning car for that long. It doesn't make sense. If he would go back, it's because like he's affiliated with Mercedes, and they want him to go back. They're paying him a lot of
Yeah.
money, maybe. The second part is George replacing. It doesn't make sense right now for Mercedes to replace Bottas with George, because over the past 6 years, or over the past 3 years that Bottas has been in Mercedes, he hasn't put a step wrong in terms of being there where Mercedes needed him to be. Where Lewis has won every single season where Bottas has been his teammate. Mercedes have won the constructor championship every single season that that Bottas has been in Mercedes. Why would they give that up? Like, he's consistent, and he sure, he doesn't fight for the championship, but do they really need that? I mean, they have Lewis.
Look, I think it's one thing for someone to just like be what the team want and go along with the team, but there's another thing of like stepping up and actually demonstrating that you have potential and demonstrating that you can be more than what the team just wants you to do. And it's also like for the fans, it's kind of disappointing to see like halfway through the season, team orders come into play, and Bottas is like saying, "Oh, let Lewis by," or things like that, or like defend from Seb, and it's just, I don't know. I personally would love to see more action from.
It is quite
the second
sad
driver.
seeing, because right now in the top running teams, Mercedes and Ferrari and Red Bull even, there is a clear distinction between number one drivers and number two drivers. So it's more of the battle between the number one drivers in the top teams and the number two drivers in the top teams. It's not really the teams fighting against each other. Like, we all know Lewis is going to beat Bottas, and Bottas will have to give up his space for Lewis. Ferrari, it was a bit confusing because Leclerc was faster. That one was a bit weird, but there were still team orders given. And Red Bull, it's always been Max who's the priority. And I think as a race fan, I want to see a team rivalry. That's the whole point of F1, is that your teammate is your biggest rival. But so far, it's always been team orders which have been preventing that.
Well, so teams want. I guess fans want to see that, where there's a inter-team battle, and we saw, recently, the most recent like really good example of that is Rosberg and Hamilton, obviously, and I think there's a balance between teams don't just want their teammates to fight each other as hard as they can, because things can happen between them. They're more likely to hit each other. They're more likely to come into collisions and lose points for for the entire team. Whereas having a clear 1 and 2 is sometimes better for teams, because they know that they can safely bring the cars home if they need to. If they can tell the number 2 driver to lay off him, don't do anything dumb, and they can have a bit easier of a ride. I guess the fans thing plays into it, because obviously we're gonna like a team more if they don't have team orders, and we're gonna. I think obviously fans appreciate the drama of having an inter-team battle more. So yeah, there's definitely a balance there, I think.
Yeah, but there's also the thing, like, in the case where Lewis either retires or crashes out of the race, like, I honestly don't see Bottas stepping up to the role. For me, Bottas will always be like someone who drives consistently, drives well, but there will never be like a shock performance from him, in the sense that, like, with Verstappen you can see him go from the back of the grid to first. With Sainz you can see that also happening. With Pierre Gasly in Brazil, he suddenly came like out of nowhere into third position and got a podium. Like, I don't, and I think like I understand that it's like good for teams to have a driver that's consistent and will do what they want. But also, it's like in the best interest of the teams to have drivers that can do exceptional when they need to be exceptional. Like, for example, in Germany, when Lewis, I think Lewis in last year in Germany when Lewis went out of contention and it was all on Bottas and the pressure was on Bottas to do well. He could have stepped up and done really well for the team, but in that moment, like in that pressure heated moment, he crashed out. So I think it's also in the best interest for the team to have a driver who can perform exceptionally when it comes to it and can perform under pressure.
Do you guys think? Do you guys think that Bottas doesn't take enough risks? Because whenever I think back of races, I can like just visualize a bunch of like Seb, Leclerc, Max, Ricardo. All I can see their crashes. Even Lewis, I know a few of his crashes, but Bottas, there aren't any memorable crashes, and maybe that's because he's playing it too safe, and that's what it leads to the consistency, but it doesn't give you the exceptional factor.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bottas is definitely a safer driver, and I think that's why Mercedes have kept him kept him around for so long, because he's consistent. He doesn't mess up most of the time, and when there's definitely times when he can step up and he can, he'll take pole position occasionally and beat Lewis. Occasionally he will beat Lewis, like in Austria last year where he got the podium and Lewis didn't. There are times when he performs and outperforms Lewis, but I think one reason that Mercedes have kept him around for so long is because of his stability as a driver. He doesn't take as many risks, and bringing on a young gun like George will definitely increase that risk, but also it'll obviously increase the entertainment value for fans.
But also the reward value.
Yeah, I guess, the reward.
A driver who takes more risks will have more opportunities to perform better.
But I mean, look, Mercedes have had so much success with the system they've had for so long, where they have this driver that's always there to pick up the points. If Lewis is P1, there's high chance that Bottas is P2. And he's that guy that's always there to pick up points and doesn't crash that often. So there's definitely an argument to be made, like why change that if they have a clear solution to winning and just being unbeatable. So okay. I think we've debated this topic long enough, and we can move on to other topics. One of them is going along with this Mercedes, and speaking of, I think we haven't mentioned that we're only a week away from races, which is extremely exciting after 7 months of sitting around and not having anything to watch F1. To be fair, the F1 media team have been doing pretty well, but you can't really replace actual racing. We're only a week away. First topic to go over: what do you guys think about DAS and how much of an effect will it make in Austria?
Was it not banned? I thought it was banned.
No, it's
until
banned.
It's banned
for next year.
Banned for next year.
Oh, but it's
banned for next year. Okay. Ferrari was complaining a bit about it, but Bottas has hinted like recently that the system will be in place for the Austrian Grand Prix. So, I mean, that's an interesting one. We really haven't seen, other than in preseason testing, which we can't take anything away from the times in preseason testing, because I mean, obviously they're on different tires, they're doing different collecting different data, like fuel loads, everything is different. You can't take away anything from testing. So we haven't really seen DAS in action, and we don't know whether it'll be effective or not, and in that sense we also can't attribute some success to DAS. and or failure to DAS, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
But there was definitely a lot of backlash from Ferrari, especially on the DAS system. But we'll see. Like, I think at the end of the day, it's the driver conferences and interviews that will reveal more about whether DAS was useful or not. But it does help on straights, right? So and Austria is one of those tracks with a few straights. So I could see it coming into play if it really is useful. And Bottas says it's really easy to use. He's very comfortable with it. So maybe it'll bring in another edge for Mercedes.
I think that because it's only banned for 2021 and then it'll come back in 2022, right?
No, once it's banned.
No,
it's banned.
I think it's just banned after.
Yeah.
Oh, they're not going to bring it back?
They're not.
I thought that they were going to have it so every team.
You can't.
Okay.
Once FIA bans something, you can't bring it back.
Yeah. Well then, I mean they haven't had. I guess they practice with it on the simulator, so they know. So like Lewis and Bottas will actually be able to be comfortable with it.
Bottas said he's very comfortable with the system and he knows how to use it well. So, I mean, I guess we'll see what happens in the GP. That's I guess all we can say about that because we don't know much about the system. Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. Another point about being back to racing in this post-pandemic world.
Post-COVID era.
Post-COVID era. That's an inside joke. You won't get it if you're joining us this week. Yeah, what do you guys think about how F1 will look like? Because okay, here's some basic things. Obviously, no crowds. Teams will not really be able to interact with each other. We're not going to get those moments between drivers where maybe they're interacting together as much. Formation laps might not look the same in terms of teams being so close to each other.
No driver parades.
No driver parade.
Martin Brundle interviews at the start of the race.
Everyone's gonna be wearing masks. Yeah, I mean, and there's so many things that are gonna be different.
There's a limited number of pit crew and engineers as well. Like, I don't know. In a way, I feel like we're gonna come back to a complete different sport. Because I know, especially, it's also strange because the Austrian GP is like, when I think of it, I always think of Max Verstappen fans in the grandstands, just all wearing orange and white separating and going crazy when overtakes happen, and that adds to the excitement. So I don't know, like, and you can hear them in the background like roaring and cheering, and like it'll definitely take away that element of excitement in that sense. But I guess only time will tell how these races will play out.
They can have the the comedy shows from the 90s or 80s where they have, like, the fake audio of clapping, like a laugh track. Yeah, they could add those every time there's an overtake.
No, did you see they did put out like tweets on Instagram. They're like requesting people to send in like, whoa, go McLaren, like the videos of people. I saw it's. I don't know how that's gonna be, but I did see. I was watching football the other night. I don't actually watch it that much, but like I was just watching like an Arsenal match or something.
Fake fan.
Yeah, I know I betrayed the sport, but I was watching it, and what they had was like the usually in football matches how they chant in the background. Like they'll say like they have some songs or something they sing. So they had kind of like the background noise of that going on in while the match was going on, but there was obviously nobody in the stands, and it was kind of weird.
It was so weird.
It was kind of weird, and then like when they scored, I don't know if this is only because like the opposing team scored and normally there would be no cheers for them, but when the opposing team scored, it was just like dead silent, and it was just so awkward seeing the guy like celebrating, and then like he went to the corner and he was like, "Yeah, this is not that exciting." Like, it
You
takes
don't
away a
wait
lot
to
of
the
the
crowds afterwards.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like the guy, he scored. He ran to like the near the stands, and then he just looked up and he was like, "Yeah, this is not that exciting anymore." It just doesn't feel. And I'm sure the F1 drivers are gonna feel like that. Like when you don't have that element of like fans cheering you on, like on the podium. Just imagine nobody being there. It's just gonna be
That's
so weird.
so
And
sad.
actually,
And social distancing
Well, no,
on the podium
they're
as well.
exactly, yeah,
they're
the
not doing the
champagne stuff, all the same.
podiums.
Yeah, yeah. I think that they are gonna have a podium, but it's just gonna be, from what I'm hearing, it'll be just not very, not the
It'll be
same
like
as normal podium. Like they'll still stand
yeah.
there, but like not have
Because
I don't know what they'll do.
I mean, I haven't heard anything about the podium celebrations for over a week. But I remember last time they were saying that we'll just arrange the cars in their positions of how they came through the checkered flag, and then they would the drivers would just stand outside of their cars, and that would be their celebration.
Oh,
I thought that
man.
was a bit anticlimactic.
Oh, that'd be so sad.
Also, like if
yeah.
you think about it, like at the end of the race when they all like get out of the cars and they're like hugging their team members, and
Mm,
you can't have that anymore because that is not social
yeah,
distancing.
yeah,
So
you can't.
uh it'll definitely be weird. Well, I'll ask you one thing, Dhruv. Like, did you ever get used to it in the football match? Did it ever get like feel normal afterwards, or
No,
was it just
no.
weird the whole time?
It was weird the whole time, like not having. I think maybe because okay, to be
Oh,
fair,
no.
I only watch one match, right? Maybe a football fan can probably, if we had our guest speaker last week, he probably could have commented more on this, but maybe after a couple of matches or a couple of races, we'll get used to it. I just think it'll definitely be a shock initially.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that
it'll
the
be
weirdest
weird.
bit for the drivers might be after they finish the race, because then as they go around, they're always waving,
Mm-hmm.
or like, otherwise, what do you do?
I have the best fans.
Oh, it'll just be the marshals. I guess you
Yeah,
can
it'll
race
be
to the
weird.
marshals.
Oh yeah, there are still marshals. That's true.
Also, like if there's a crash, like you hear the audience go like, and you
Whoa.
like you see the faces of people like being freaked out and stuff. But it's just gonna be so like bland. But also, yeah, I don't know. It'll definitely be weird, but
Yeah.
I definitely prefer this over no racing for sure.
Definitely. Okay,
That's
and one
definitely
more
true.
one thing
What?
to talk
But-
about of like Corona and drivers, and I think
But
Sky.
one thing to add before
Okay, go on.
we talk about COVID itself, I think like driver performance might be affected by this in general. Like a lot of drivers say like um the fans often like when they're cheering and stuff, it motivates them to go for that overtake. It motivates them to push extra, especially for like their home Grand Prix and things like that. So like I don't know, like obviously that plays a role. Like when you hear people screaming your name and like there's a sense of adrenaline that pushes you to go harder. And I don't know if how that
Maybe
will
it'll
play.
be an equalizer because obviously there's a lot of drivers that don't have fans or as many fans, so it'll make things more fair.
Oh
It'll
no!
make the grid more equal. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, we're trying
It's
to
like
make
Roman
racing.
Grosjean wins the Austrian Grand Prix.
I'm just saying, it's just we
Oh,
talk
yeah,
about
that would
equalizing
be-
the field, so maybe this is just one
That'd
more
be
step
weird.
that we have to take. Okay, but okay, one more thing that Martin Brundle not Martin Brundle, Ted Kravitz talked about. He said he was going over all the test drivers of different teams of like what happens if obviously what happens if a driver gets COVID. Like we've had apparently Max and Daniel were partying somewhere on an island in Spain or something.
Typical.
Of course.
Yeah, and Lewis obviously has been protesting. Not to say that's he shouldn't or anything, just that he has been interacting with people and most of the drivers have definitely exposed themselves to risk. So it's not like saying that it's impossible for it to happen, but you know, if it does happen, I honestly think, although obviously it would be sad for the drivers that get the disease, it'll probably add some excitement to see like some like imagine Stoffel coming back and like racing in a Mercedes. Like I think honestly that would be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, we didn't see many reserve drivers come into play. Did we see any last season for an
No,
actual race day?
they
Only during like practice.
Ericsson was
Yeah.
brought in case because I think somebody got sick. I forgot who he was subbing in for. I think-
Hamilton was sick one day, but like he was okay for race day.
Yeah, no. But Ericsson was brought in for Ferrari or something. I don't remember, but he was definitely brought in.
Ferrari.
Not for I don't know who he was brought in for, but I definitely remember Ericsson coming in because
Yes.
there was a driver that was sick and they weren't sure if he would be able to go through. So Ericsson was the reserve just in case. But I forgot who it was. I honestly don't remember.
I think they'll also be on high alert as well. Like if a driver is feeling like feverish or they have a cough and stuff, like they won't take the risk and put them out on the grid. So it'll definitely be much easier for much.
It could actually give chances to some drivers that like Pascal Wehrlein and Stoffel Van Dorn. These guys, they're good. They just just didn't wrong place, wrong time. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to some. Okay. One interesting thing that probably will happen is Mugello. I think that's how you pronounce it. Is going to be added to the calendar. It's an Italian track owned by Ferrari. Apparently has a lot of straights and apparently won't be too good for like overtaking. But obviously we don't know anything. There's no testing being done on it. What do you guys think? Is it cool to see just a random new track coming in?
Yeah,
I haven't actually seen it, so I don't know. But always open.
I'd be down, honestly. More races, better for us, and like, let's like, it's a new setting, like new thing.
Apparently,
like, who knows?
Apparently, apparently they're gonna arrange it so that Mugello will be the 1000th race for Ferrari, because since it's owned by Ferrari.
That would be nice.
Yeah, so I think like and I read this comment and it was like if because Monza and Mugello will be back to back, if Ferrari wins both Monza and Mugello, Maranello will go into meltdown, and if Ferrari loses both Maranello and Mugello, Maranello will go into meltdown. So they're under a lot of pressure there.
That would actually be so insane if we saw, like the Tifosi in both races, and if they both win, like imagine the.
I mean, we're not going to see that, but
I mean, we won't, but like it just as a hypothetical in the future if Mugello ever gets added, but like that's another thing about the fans not being there. Like the reaction after Monza last year was just mental. Like I've never seen anything like that.
It was insane.
Like even sitting like behind the screen, in like thousands of miles away from Italy, like
exactly,
just you could feel it.
That's the thing. Seb, we've talked about this. How like Seb says everyone's a Ferrari fan. Like, I think everybody just enjoyed that. Apart from Hamilton, I think he got booed or something. But I think everyone apart from him, I think everyone was enjoying that. Like everybody was so happy to see Charles up there and seeing like all those Ferrari fans celebrating.
For sure.
It was so nice to see.
I mean, 2019 Monza was also a thing that Ferrari definitely needed because they weren't doing well beforehand, and that was pretty. Similar to how you were saying, it would be a make or break if they win or lose. They just needed that. Otherwise, it would have been disaster for them and like for the press there.
Yeah,
fair. Exactly. And it was like a breaking point. Like finally, the first like.
Tifosi are hard on their racers, dude. They're not an easy bunch to please, and they're very. They're also very easy to piss off.
There's a lot of pressure on them. I mean, it's actually kind of sad that Lewis got booed. that's not cool.
Italian fans
But-
are very
Yeah.
passionate. I'll leave it at that because even in like football, like they're crazy. So,
Yeah.
well, speaking of Ferrari, I don't know. The news came out, and I think we briefly mentioned it maybe in our last podcast. I don't know how much in depth we went into it, but we know that Sebastian and Ferrari are in a weird place now, where obviously he's going to be leaving at the end of the season. We don't know where he's going to go. Carlos is going to come into Ferrari. We can begin with that, with Ferrari itself, and we can go into some of the other teams. But what do you guys think? Sebastian just leaving at this point and not being confirmed. I don't know where that puts him in terms of. I don't know where that puts him in terms of will Ferrari keep it secretive from him as well, like what they do when drivers move to other teams. Will the relationship be different? What do you guys
I
think?
think Ferrari definitely left. I mean, Seb definitely left Ferrari with bad blood. And it was evident because like Seb was struggling with the fact that Leclerc was starting to be favored, and you could see it in his like mannerisms that he wasn't happy. And then on top of that, in their announcement, it wasn't like a very jolly announcement. I don't know what a jolly announcement would look like, but it was what did they say again? Like it's in the best interest of both sides that we leave, and there was one statement that was like just made it seem so like bad blood.
I
It's like
remember
our interests
what you're
don't-
referring to.
Like it was like
I'm
our
not sure who
interests don't
said it.
align anymore or something. But yeah, I and it's weird because I feel like during this off season, everyone basically thought it was, or I know for me, like I thought it was basically 2021. I thought with the start of the Austrian Grand Prix, we would see Carlos and Leclerc in Ferrari, but obviously that's not the case. And when I realized that, I'm like, wow, that dynamic between Ferrari and Leclerc will be, I mean, Sebastian and Leclerc will be weird.
Yeah, it's also sad for Seb because he came to Ferrari from Red Bull after winning world championships, and he came in expecting another world championship car, and they've let him down year after year. And this year, from
I don't know if
preseason
they let him
testing,
down
it
every
didn't
year.
seem-
He definitely had chances there. Like 2017, 2018, he was even leading the
Okay.
championship. I think they both had some parts to play. Obviously, Ferrari didn't always give him like the dominating car. Like it was never the best car. But I think they definitely gave him opportunity to lead the pack and actually give Lewis enough of a contention.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
know.
But I could see Seb, because I mean, you obviously don't want to, as a driver, admit that Lewis is better than him. So I could see him blaming the car every year and then just always taking it a bit of like, it's your guys' fault, it's not mine. And now, as Farhan said, I have no clue what the relationship will be like.
Yeah.
If he will even be trying to go for points or if he will just be taking unnecessary risks because it doesn't matter so much for him now.
You know, it'd be funny if he wins this season. Like,
Yeah, I
how
was
weird
just
would it
about
be?
to say. It just yeah. But
I mean,
also
I would be very happy for him,
it's-
but it would be such a weird thing to see him leave
It
as
just
a
seems-
champion.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also very unlikely because
Yeah,
we saw in preseason testing that
The car is
Ferrari
just
were
not
not
that
on
good.
the
yeah, it's
best
not.
foot, and Red Bull were actually very strong in preseason testing. So I think like honestly, this season we'll see Red Bull have a foot up against Ferrari.
Yeah, I think it might be Max's best chance so far to
Oh,
take the
for
title
sure.
challenge.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah.
Also, like on top of that, like I think it's the best like time to keep an eye on the midfield because we saw improvements from both Racing Point
Everyone's
and
going to be
Renault.
so competitive. Yeah,
I think the midfield is going to be where it's at, like honestly, because they, yeah, like last year McLaren like really stepped up, and Racing Point and Renault were like slightly on the back foot, but now that they've improved over winter testing, and obviously Renault has also like introduced packages throughout the off season, so I'm really curious to see how that midfield battle plays out.
You think
Hopefully,
Carlos has
like,
made? Yeah, finish racing.
Sorry.
Finish racing.
I mean, hopefully, like it won't be too far out from where Williams and like Haas and Alfa Romeo can compete. You know, like
right,
I don't want to see them at the very back.
Let's wrap up with one final question,
guys. Yes.
Yeah.
Can I a bit of a fast round before we finish up? Top 3 finishers predictions and pole prediction for Austria GP.
Okay.
Pole is Max. I feel like Max will have to take pole.
Who put on pole last? I don't remember who put on pole. I think Bottas was on pole.
You just watched it yesterday.
Last year. Yeah.
Or today.
I think Bottas was on pole. Okay, I'm gonna go Bottas 3.0. He's coming in number 1 pole position. I think it'll be Hamilton number 2 and then Max number 3.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah, for pole. Red Bull that's qualifying. That's qualifying, and then I think Max will win.
Oh, okay.
And then I think, and then the Mercedes are gonna struggle again in Austria as they usually do. Charles will come and take P2 again, and have a bit of a battle with Max, but not really compete.
That's what happened last year, though.
I'm just retelling the
He's
story
just
of
recreating last year.
I think it's just gonna be the same.
But
race
this time we also have Albon. I feel like Albon will also do well.
As much as I like Albon, I don't know if he's at the race winning point yet. I think he's definitely can compete for podiums.
He's definitely at, like, if you compare Albon's first year at Red Bull or the first few races at Red Bull to Max's first
they're on par.
Red Bull, he was like on par. So like there's definitely room for improvement, but I think he's like,
I agree.
Hopefully he gets it, because
one thing to consider is that Max was 18 and Albon is 21, 22. So like there's definitely differences in the talent level there. But yes, I agree. Albon is very good. I like him and I definitely think he's an upgrade from Pierre. But yeah, okay. What do you guys?
You guys are too harsh.
I don't know what you guys thought of. What do you think it'll be? 1, 2, 3 in Austria.
Farhan, go first.
I honestly have no idea. I'm hoping Verstappen wins for sure. Other than that, it's just a mixed bag. Mercedes has struggled in the past with Austria.
They say, I mean, it was because of their heating issues. They're like their lack of heat management, but they say they fixed it.
Yeah, but their engine wasn't that reliable during preseason testing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So like, I feel like there's still issues with that. I honestly can't say.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna revise my prediction. I'm gonna say Max, Albon, Bottas. All right, you go.
Okay. I'm going to give one which is a bit unexpected. Max, Bottas, Sergio.
What?
I think the pink Mercedes.
You think it's gonna?
In preseason testing, they were pretty good. I think.
You think they're gonna beat actual Mercedes? Silver Mercedes?
Is a chance.
They're gonna beat
six-time
world champion.
Yeah, he'll retire. I'm planning on a retirement for Lewis.
Okay.
That's the only way.
Banking on. Okay, but I
need Grosjean's help for that.
Checo, do you see? He on Instagram they posted like he was the most picked driver for the fantasy draft, and then he commented. Checo replied saying like, "Yeah, they're onto something. They know," or something like that.
That's funny. Yeah. I think he was just most economical or something like.
Yeah, he is. He's just reliable. We all know he's gonna do well. No matter what. So. Okay, well, unless you guys have anything else to wrap up with, I think this is a good time to end episode 2. Episode
Yes.
2? Yeah, episode 2.
Episode
Well, we'll
2.
we'll be back next week, guys. After Austria GP. Hopefully it's an exciting race. Hopefully it doesn't get put off, cancelled. Nothing bad happens in between now and then.
Yeah.
Hopefully all the drivers make it. there
We've
safely.
waited too long for anything wrong to happen.
Exactly. But yeah, I guess we're gonna record an episode after the Austria GP. Let you know our thoughts, anything else that comes up, talk about controversy, etc. Yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys back.
Remember to follow us on Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram.
On
'Cause
Instagram. On
Yeah.
Instagram, we have a new account,
Farhan-
F1.fix. Look it up and follow.
Farhan is making memes for Instagram,
Yes.
so
If you want to see
you
the
can get
hottest
those
F1 news.
juicy.
They're quality memes, okay, guys?
Exactly. You guys are going to love it. Follow F1.fix on Instagram. Follow us on Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn. I don't know what else we're going to start this on.
Yeah, that's fine. That's
I don't
fine.
know about LinkedIn, but yeah.